If you're watching this, maybe it's not sadness exactly. It's something quieter than that. You get up, you go through the motions, you do the things you're supposed to do. And somewhere in the middle of an ordinary Tuesday, you catch yourself thinking, what is the point of any of this? Nothing feels wrong enough to explain it, but nothing feels like it matters either. And that's a strange, lonely kind of pain, because no one else can see it. I want you to know something before we go any further. This feeling is not a character flaw. It's not proof that you're ungrateful, or broken, or that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's a signal. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it's pointing you toward, and exactly what to do about it. Viktor Frankl survived years in Nazi concentration camps, and he came out the other side saying the people who endured weren't the strongest or the smartest. They were the ones who still believed their life had a why. That's the thing about meaning. It isn't a personality trait some people have and others don't. It's closer to a set of muscles most of us have simply stopped using. So let's talk about why the fire went out, and then, more importantly, how you feed it back to life. Why it happens, the existential vacuum. Psychologists use this term for a very specific feeling: boredom, emptiness, a low-grade apathy that never fully goes away. Think of it like a phone at 1% battery. It still turns on, it still works, but everything feels slower, dimmer, like it's running on fumes. You go to work, you scroll your phone, you go to sleep, and somewhere in the repetition, the why quietly disappeared. The achievement treadmill. You hit the goal, the promotion, the relationship status you wanted, and for about a week it feels amazing. Then it doesn't. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation, and it's exactly like a hamster wheel. You're running, you're even making progress by some measure, but you're in the same place you started. Happiness is designed to fade fast. Meaning is supposed to be the thing that doesn't. Disconnection. Humans are wired for belonging the way plants are wired for sunlight, but modern life is oddly good at making you feel alone in a crowded room. You can be in a room full of people and still feel like you're behind glass. And when that happens, it's easy to start believing a very convincing thought, that you're separate from everyone else's story, that other people have purpose and connection, and you're just watching from outside it. That thought is not a fact, it's a symptom. Symptoms lie. They tell you the isolation is permanent when it's actually just where you are right now. What actually works? Here's something that surprises a lot of people: meaning almost never arrives before action. We tend to wait to feel motivated before we do something, but it usually works the other way around. This is behavioral activation, and it's the opposite of how it feels like it should work. You do the small thing first half-heartedly without believing it will help, and only sometimes a small flicker of feeling shows up after, not before. Waiting to feel like it can trap people for months, because the feeling was never going to come first. It was waiting on the other side of a small action you hadn't taken yet. So here's the practice, and it's smaller than you think it needs to be. Meaning is less like a light switch and more like a small fire. It doesn't stay lit on its own. It has to be fed one small piece of kindling at a time. And when the fire goes out, that doesn't mean you're incapable of warmth. It just means it's gone unfed for a while. So if you're sitting in the cold right now, wondering where the fire went, here's the first thing to know. You don't have to build a bonfire today. You just need one twig. When your whole life feels meaningless, it's easy to think you need a complete answer, a new job, a new belief system, some grand realization that flips a switch and makes everything make sense again. But chasing a big answer when you're this exhausted is like trying to run a marathon on an empty tank. It's not that you're weak, it's that you're asking the wrong size question. So instead, ask a smaller one. Not, what is the meaning of my life? Just, is there one small thing I could do in the next hour that would feel even slightly less empty than doing nothing? That's it. That's the whole question. It could be answering one email, it could be watering a plant, it could be walking to the end of the street and back. You're not committing to fixing your entire life, you're just looking for one twig. For the disconnection, the antidote isn't a deep, meaningful conversation, not yet. It's something much smaller. Send one text, not a whole explanation of what you're going through, just something like, hey, thinking of you, or are you free to talk later? You are not asking anyone to fix you. You're just cracking the window open a little so the room doesn't feel so sealed. If you want to test the thought that connection isn't available to you, pick one person and do one small, unremarkable act of care for them. Ask a coworker how their weekend was and actually listen to the answer. Call a parent for 5 minutes with no agenda. These tiny acts pull you very slightly out of your own head and back into the world. You're not trying to feel a huge sense of purpose, you're just testing whether connection is actually there. Almost every time it still is. There's one more thing worth trying, and it sounds too simple to matter, which is exactly why it works. When everything feels pointless, your senses tend to go quiet along with everything else. Food tastes like nothing in particular. Music plays in the background instead of moving you. This is worth noticing because part of what you're missing isn't meaning itself, it's contact with your own senses, with the physical world, with the parts of being alive that don't require a reason to enjoy them. So try this. Pick one sense, on purpose, for 60 seconds. Really taste your coffee instead of drinking it on autopilot. Step outside and notice the actual temperature of the air on your skin. None of this hands you a life philosophy, but it reminds a tired mind that the world is still textured, still there, still worth touching, even on a day when nothing feels like it means much. The part that's harder to hear. Sometimes the meaninglessness isn't really about meaning at all. Sometimes it's your mind and body telling you they're exhausted, underslept, overworked, or quietly depleted in ways you've been ignoring for a long time. If this feeling has lasted for weeks, not days, if it's paired with trouble sleeping, trouble eating, or thoughts of not wanting to be here anymore, that's not something to push through alone. That's worth telling someone, a doctor, a therapist, or a trusted person in your life. Not because you failed at finding meaning, but because sometimes the fire can't catch when the wood itself is soaked through, and that needs tending to first. It comes back slowly, meaning when it comes back rarely comes back all at once. It comes back the way morning comes, not with a switch flipped, but with the sky slowly, almost unnoticeably, getting lighter. You won't wake up one day and suddenly feel that everything matters again. You'll notice, maybe weeks from now, that you laughed at something without trying to, that you looked forward to a small thing, that the fire somehow quietly caught again. You don't owe anyone a grand purpose today, you just owe yourself one twig, one small act, one small message, one small hour that's slightly less empty than the one before it. That's enough. That's actually the whole practice. If this video reached you at a hard moment, we'd love to hear gently in the comments what has helped you find your own way back to meaning before. Someone else reading this might need exactly what worked for you. And if things feel heavier than what's described here, please reach out to a doctor, therapist, or a crisis line in your area. You deserve support built for exactly this moment, not just a video.